game. Agortime Beh is a small farming community in the Volta region of Ghana. This close-knit community can boast of about 500 residents. If these residents are not farming, they most likely are weaving kente as a second source of income. Nonetheless, like many other rural communities in Ghana, the seeming lack of employment has chased the youth to urban areas for the proverbial greener pasture. Those who could not escape the poverty of Agortime Beh turn to Okada business to fend for themselves. Consequently, Agortime Beh's development has been left to the hands of the aged. The empty streets and quiet homes exposes the extent to which it has been deserted as poverty stares hard at residents. Very few of those who leave the town return to start a life here. This is why residents could not fathom why one young man who had slid through the hands of devouring poverty in Agortime Beh would return. Vozbeth Azumah is only 27 but has a big dream. Big dreams that begin in small, deserted and destitute Agortime Beh. His return to the community after successfully completing studies at the university baffled many residents. But Azumah had a plan. His return to the community was to make use of his own resources to bring some life back to that part of the country. His plan was not to wait on government to make a move. Azumah ventured into snail farming, a decision that saddened his mother.
When I started the business from 2017, that's when I finished my national service, using my national money, and you can see fully established company, just barely 2 years. But it peaked after 1 year. I studied social science in university, and in the SS, I did general art. As I speak, I don't have any agricultural background. Even when I applied to universities to further my masters in agriculture or even do other agricultural courses, I was told I do not have agricultural background, so I was not even given the permission to study those agricultural programs. But as I speak to you, I took advantage of online learning to establish my agriculture journey, and coming back home from the university to speak to my mom or to speak to my dad that I want to go into agriculture. The answer they gave me was no, do not go into this business because we have been into it before and it has not benefited us. So I have to fight that stigma, I have to fight that no, because even in the family, if you tell your parent no, it means you are actually challenging them because they actually supported you to go to the university. Now you are back, they expect you to be in office, wear the tie and get office money, but I have a different view of it and wanted to go into it. So I have to convince them they have to support me or they leave me alone. So from the initial stage, they left me alone and I was doing my business. And now they are back.
Vozbeth, after university, decided to go into Argentina snail farming. He established the West Africa Snail Masters. His humble beginnings meant he could not tell his friends who may make mockery of his business plan.
If you take the statistics from the research institutes, people into farming are between 40 to 50, 80 years above. And this should be a worry to a country, for us as a country, because if indeed the UN want to fight food insecurity, and if the UN want to fight poverty, and if really we want to alleviate hunger and also create jobs for the people, then there's the need for us to also take attention and take a look at the people actually involved in the sector, and these people are aged. And the question I usually ask myself is, should these people mistakenly pass away, who would take up the mantle to engage in this fighting for food insecurity, fighting for hunger and co? We the youth are the people who have to take up this venture. That is why I have accepted a challenge as a change agent who is willing to be called a food security icon and actually tapping into the agribusinesses that I'm actually running. And snail farming is one of the untapped businesses.
The giant African land snail, also known as Chatina species, is known to grow up to 30 centimeters in length and could be found in the dense tropical rainforest across the region from Guinea, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ivory Coast, Ghana to Nigeria. These snails multiply really fast, laying up to 100 eggs at a go. Unlike livestock rearing, snail farming requires very little startup and operating costs. In terms of cost and time, snail farming is a low-risk business. The biological makeup of snails allows for reproduction all year round. That's why the West African snail masters can now boast of more than 2,000 individual snails kept in more than 20 cages from their small beginnings. Before getting into snail farming, the farmer must select an open piece of land where suitable plants are grown. This would help to feed snails, and they will also use it for shelter. Vozbeth tells me basically, not all crops or plants provide a suitable shade for snails, reason why cocoyam is an ideal crop for snail farming.
That is to serve as a fattening house where the snails will be allowed to move around here freely and eat, because we have planted the food that they mostly prefer, the constituent Beh people call it, and also you can see some other leafy vegetables in there. So the snails will be allowed to roam in here. So the purpose is to gain the required weight before we actually release them into the market. So the processing department rely on snails from this particular extensive housing. The breeding housing is basically for breeding, so that we can continue reproducing the species. You see, the environment snails require is about from 65 to 70% humidity, and from between 26 to 25, 27 degrees Celsius temperature. And the net we are using is a shaded net. We call it the 40-60 shaded net. It means that it only allows 40% sunlight penetration, and within is a 60% shade. So it means that this room is best for snails to stay in here. We once again add the cocoyam to also provide more shade and also serve as a food for the snails to eat. So you also see at my left, you see a plantain. This is also providing shade for the snails to stay under. I told you earlier that snails require 65 to about 80% humidity, relative humidity, and also from about 25 to 27 degrees Celsius temperature. So that is what we are doing to mimic the environment in which snails live in the forest.
Snails are a huge part of meals in many parts of Africa, although they are always not affordable due to supply challenges. Their high protein and low fat makes them a nutritional favorite. They contain almost all the amino acids needed by the body, and most of its byproducts are used for cosmetics and medicines. Along with snail farming comes selling. The size of snails must be large and intimidating enough to command a premium price. That's why one must start his snail farm with the right species. 4 pieces of these ones, for instance, will sell for 25 cedis. It is for this reason Azumah says snail farmers must ensure they apply proper breeding, stocking and feeding practices as done by the West Africa snail masters in order to achieve plumper snails, which will in turn increase price and demand. Snails have for a long time been a popular and recurring item on the menus of hotels, restaurants and bars, where they often feature as boiled, fried and spiced kebabs. They are also a great addition to soups and stews, which is a significant part of most African dishes. Most of the snails supplied to the African market are gathered from bushes and forests during the rainy season. usually between April and September. Because snails are very dominant during the dry season, they become increasingly scarce during this period, and the market is starved of adequate supply until the next wet season. This makes the supply of snails very seasonal in many parts of Africa where they serve as food. As a consequence, snails can fetch much higher prices during the dry season, that is, December to March, when supply often does not keep up with demand. Azumah's primary goal is to take advantage of the seasonality of this market in order to gain premium prices for snails. Target the high-end customers such as hotels, restaurants and households who can afford to pay a premium for a steady supply of the product. If the snail masters supply all year round, they are likely to earn lesser during the rainy seasons when supplies is in abundance and more in the dry season when products is scarce. Presently, more than 90% of the snail supply to our local markets are picked from the forest. While this has been a traditional supply source, our growing population and rising rural to urban migration rates makes it unsustainable. An artificial intervention like snail farming is the only way to satisfy the growing demand. As long as a huge chunk of the market depends on snails captured in the wild, nobody can assure a steady and consistent supply of large snails like a farmer who breeds snails in his or her backyard. The West African snail masters alone cannot meet demand. He argued the youth who are not only unemployed but also have the passion for farming to turn their attention to snail farming.
We do receive huge orders for frozen and also live snails from Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Takoradi, even Togo. And these processed snails or frozen snails, some even currently in Accra are requesting 6,000 packs per month, wanting to be a sole distributor. The issue is that we as a company cannot actually meet those demands. But the demand is more than what we can actually service the market. So that is why there is a need for us to or that's why we are training people all over the country so that they can become our supply agents. So yes, the market, we create them by taking advantage of social media and also taking advantage of the traditional media. And we sell locally, locally within the community, and also all that part of the country. Our products are there. We are now calling for distributors, whereby we don't take the product and distribute for ourselves, but we have these distributors working for the company, and we now deliver it to them on wholesale prices.
Azumah, through the Snail Masters, has trained and employed many young people in his community. Emanuela P. Bansa is one of such beneficiary. She is currently the processing officer with West African Snail Masters.
I'm Emanuela P. Bansa, and I study human resource development in Ipe University College. I process the snails and I package them. I would say it's a very good business, and then I will advise any other individual to go into it. They shouldn't sit down saying there is no job. They should try and do something that out of school, when they are not in school, maybe during holidays, and then even within school section, school section, they should try and do something, because tertiary education is not about sitting in the classroom 24 hours. Sometimes go to school maybe 2 p.m. or 1 p.m. So from morning to that time, you can do something for yourself. And even if you have lectures from morning, you can still do something after.
The West African Snail Masters hopes to train many more youth outside of Agortime Beh in snail farming. By that, Snail Masters see a future of being a leading snail farming outlet in the sub-region. Perhaps the next snail meal you consume may be from the backyard of the West African Snail Masters in humble Agortime Beh.